Hey everybody, I'm Chris. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Today I'm going to be discussing my top 4K horror releases of 2023. Now, before we get into my actual main top 10 of the year, I want to kind of give some clarification and also some honorable mentions that didn't make the top 10, but I think are standout releases of the year. So my biggest clarification before we get into all of this is I'm not going to have any new releases on this list because none of them for me personally kind of stood out. So there's not going to be any Scream 6s or Evil Dead Rises. They're very modern movies and they look very good and the audio is pretty decent on those, but I really wanted to dive into stuff that had been restored, that was older, that got new 4Ks, and so that is what this list primarily consists of. So if you're looking to see kind of what I think of like a modern release, and I typically don't even cover those on the channel because I think unless they're like atrociously bad, most people assume that those movies are going to be pretty decent. Scream 6 and Evil Dead Rise look fine, they sound fine. You know, it's one of those things that I just felt that I wanted to kind of show off the restorations of this past year and not just modern movies that come out in 4K that look good. Megan looks good in 4K. I mean, it's one of those things that Violent Night looks very good in 4K, but I really wanted to focus on the restorations of 2023, and most of you that are physical media fans, that's what you're looking for, are the top 10 4Ks of stuff that I think you should buy that has been restored or gotten a new 4K. All right, so I do have a couple honorable mentions at the beginning, but before we get into all that, let me know down below what was your favorite 4K of the last year. Now, it can be more modern, it could be whatever you want. You let me down in the comments below what your opinion is. What was your favorite 4K of the year? So let's get into my honorable mentions here. And the first one is going to be the Hellraiser Quartet of Torment here. And so I think this is an incredible set from Arrow. I think the movies look very good. I haven't had a super long time to kind of dive in. This is one that I got very late in the year, and I do want to dive into all the supplemental features, but I did want to mention it here. It may like rank up on the list, you know, the more I watch it and stuff like that. But again, it was added very late for me, but I do think it is an incredible set from Arrow, and I do recommend that you pick it up if you like Hellraiser. All right, the next honorable mention is going to be Night Screams from Scream Factory. I also do want to mention that none of this list has anything to do with how good the movie actually is. This is not a best horror movie of 2023. These are just best 4Ks or things that were most surprising to me. Night Screams is definitely one of those. I actually did cover the movie in a full review on the channel, so I'll link that in a card up below so you can check that out. This is a very bad movie, but the 4K is incredible. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so I've got two more honorable mentions that I want to kind of get out of the way before we get into the list, and that's going to be Scream 3. This is a solid presentation, and I think the first two were very good, so I wasn't surprised that the third one was any slouch in that department. So I really like this. I like the steelbook, and I'm hoping that one day we actually get 4 so I can complete this dumb collection. Anyway, the last honorable mention is going to be Sweeney Todd. This was a surprise this year. We kind of knew it was like a big known surprise that this was going to come in the Paramount Scares box set. I'm happy that they did that. It's cool that Paramount is doing, even though half of it was movies that already existed and were already out. If you didn't own those movies, it was worth picking up. If you did, it maybe wasn't, you know, worth it to pay $100 to get Sweeney Todd. I think Sweeney Todd looks and sounds very good. So that is the last honorable mention on this list. Let's get into the top 10. Number 10 is going to be the Blob remake on 4K from Scream Factory. Now, say what you will about Scream Factory, but I think they had a very solid year as far as transfers go. Even if you don't like the packaging, even if the price is too high, even all of that stuff aside, they had a very solid transfer year. I am not the biggest fan of Scream Factory. They do a lot of stuff, so it's one of those things that you kind of can't get away from them. Even all those people that are like, well, I'm never going to buy them, that's fine, but they own licenses. They're all one of the biggest companies, so they are putting out the most 4Ks across the year as far as horror goes. So sometimes you kind of can't avoid it, and I really like the Blob. Also, a lot of the Blu-rays I don't own, so for me, these are not necessarily like, oh, I'm just double dipping on every release. Some of them I've like gotten rid of, or they were like notoriously bad. Like our number 1 pick on this list was a notoriously bad Blu-ray from them. So it was one of those things that you have to decide all those things. I do try to take that into account in my 4K reviews. Like, Do you already own it? Do you not own it? But again, Scream Factory is going to be on here a couple times, but this isn't indicative of the company or how I feel about them themselves. I'm just going based on how the transfers were this year. All right, the next one on the list is going to be Rosemary's Baby. I really like this movie a lot. I think it's a very slow burn, kind of methodical horror where these things are slowly happening to this woman. And rewatching it this year, I was kind of floored about how much I liked it. Yes, I was like, okay, let's wrap it up. But I really love this, and the 4K is incredible. So that is next on the list. All right, the next two are Scream Factories, and then we'll kind of be done with them for a while. Wanted to mix it up. The next one is Night of the Demons, which I think got a pretty incredible set this year. It was a set of all three. The second and third ones are very hard to find, and they have been, so them bringing out those Blu-rays with new scans was pretty cool. I actually prefer the second one, but they only did the first one in 4K, so that's why I wanted to mention it here. Let's get into the next one. That is going to be Creepshow. I am a huge fan of this movie. It's one of the best horror anthologies ever made. They also did Tales from the Dark Side this year at the very end of the year. I thought that transfer was pretty good. I do have a review of that up on the channel. And again, I'll link all my 4K reviews from the entire year at the very end. So if you're like, okay, what did he really think of all these in all the details, special features, all of that is in those reviews. So definitely check that out. If I did that all here, this video would be like 2 hours long. But anyway, let's get into a main label title, and that is going to be from Warner Brothers, and that's going to be The Exorcist. The Exorcist is probably my favorite horror movie of all time, you know, along with a bunch of obscure movies that nobody's ever heard of, but I really like this. I think all the packaging for this movie that was released is garbage. I just went with the standard one. I missed the Steelbook, which I think is like marginally better, but all of the packaging is very bad. So it was one of those things that I was like, just give me the movie. It's gonna look and sound good, and it does, and it doesn't disappoint in any way. I think it's very good, and I was very happy with the turnout. I just think the packaging is garbage. Luckily it sits like this. I even think that the green is ugly. I don't know who was doing anything at Warner Brothers. All their packaging of late has been pretty terrible because they're just doing this 100th anniversary thing, and so I try to get the Steelbooks just so I don't have that with like Training Day. Incredible Steelbook, but I didn't want that plastered on the top. That's another 4K. We're gonna talk about non-horror. Training Day looks incredible. All right, the next one is like a twofer, so you're gonna see both versions of this. Now, I will preface this by saying that I prefer the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. It is in my top 10 of movies of all time. I love the sequel so much because it is me. It is very weird and like wacky, and that's what I love about horror, where the first one is very straightforward and I think it's kind of boring, but I do like the movie and obviously appreciate what it did for horror going forward. It's just not one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and I own 2 copies of it now. So multiple copies, actually. I have multiple of this. So we have the Dark Skies release. That is the Steelbook. I think the Steelbook is pretty good, just that classic artwork. These are both the same transfers with just a little bit done. The next one is the Second Sight one, and I think this release is super cool. I do like the documentary that's on here. The book is really cool. The art cards are super cool. So as just a physical media fan, this was obviously the version that I wanted. I think the Steelbook is very cool, but this Second Sight version is like a knockout. This is incredible and a must own, I think, if you're a fan of this. I think this thing is actually sold out at this point. I think you can get the normal release, but at that point I would probably just get the Dark Sky release so you can get that cool like eye slip cover, or the Steelbook if that's still available. All right, and the next one on my list is, again, probably in my top like 20. I mean, I don't know where. I've never really sat down and ranked horror movies, you know, in my mind and be like, what's number one? Because I kind of change. You know, I think the staples are there, but The Wicker Man from Lionsgate is definitely up there. I love this movie so much, and I actually, when I sat down to rewatch it, was so surprised at how much it holds up and how much it is still relevant today, and like, it is so good. And the transfer, yes, there's some weird things that they had added later from like a director's cut and stuff like that. This is an incredible release. And I know there's like a big set that they did in the UK, but I love this Steelbook from Lionsgate. Again, I had to have Lionsgate on here because they do incredible work. Their Steelbooks are like bar none the best in the business, and this is no slouch. There's that. Again, I do have a review on the channel, but I love this movie. I think it is very well done. It is one of those slow, atmospheric movies that I personally love, and I just think it's a really solid release from this year. All right, the next one is going to be The Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, you might be wondering, Chris, That's not really a horror movie. And you would be right. And that's why I had so many honorable mentions at the beginning. But as a physical media fan and a 4K fan, I cannot not talk about The Nightmare Before Christmas release. Think what you will about the movie. We all have our own opinions about the movie. But holy shit, this movie looks amazing. And the 7.1 track is incredible. And it's something that it would not be that like crazy if it was from another company. But Disney notoriously does terrible on the audio front. I think Prey sounds incredible. Prey is an incredible sounding movie. The Night Before Christmas, it looks amazing. And I think when the Blu-ray came out, we were all like stunned because you like saw Zero's pumpkin nose and a lot of those details really stood out. This 4K is like on another level on top of that. I wish they hadn't done that dumb-ass Steelbook release where it's just the silver ones Disney was doing because it was garbage. They could have done a really cool Steelbook, but instead they're lazy and they don't like to do anything good. So that's why I don't own any like Disney shit because it's all bad. They've ruined a lot of stuff. Their 4Ks are like middling and not great. I do own Black Panther. Sorry, I take that back. I do own the Steelbooks of Black Panther because they're cool. But other than that, terrible work. So anyway, on a visual and audio front, this is a standout. The audio is so impressive. Disney usually does a terrible job with that. I think Prey again is another like standout from them. That's kind of 20th Century. That's kind of a they own it, but I don't think that's like the same people. But anyway, Nightmare Before Christmas, solid release this year. All right, let's get into the final two. Now, we finally get to talk about one of my favorite distributors. Actually, my favorite distributor of ever. They're my favorite boutique. And that is Vinegar Syndrome. So I know some people like Arrow, some people like a lot of these other companies, but Vinegar Syndrome for me just does the Lord's work. They're out there Bible thumping for physical media and weird, obscure movies that no one's ever heard of, and I love that. I recently watched The Black Room and Fatal Games that we got in the Black Friday sale. They're both great. I had never seen them, but Fatal Games I had seen once, but it was on a terrible VHS copy, so it was cool to kind of see that fully restored. The Black Room I'd never seen. I do want to do full reviews for them as far as like movie reviews because I think they're both weird, and The Black Room actually surprised me. I was actually surprised at how much I loved it. It's pretty great. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the Prophecy trilogy. I do have a full video of this, so this is going to be short and sweet as this video is getting long in the tooth. But anyway, these transfers look incredible. Christopher Walken is great. The audio is great. The packaging is great. This is a standout release on all fronts. I'm looking forward to what they do in the future. As a 2024 subscriber to Vinegar Syndrome, I will be probably covering them a lot more than I did this past year because I will be getting mostly everything that they put out. So I'm excited for that. I have wanted to do that, across all of these years. Maybe it seems worth it at this point to do it. All right, last but not least, we're here. We're at number one, and this may surprise some of you. If you're new here, it'll probably gonna surprise you. If you've been around and you've watched all my 4Ks, I've mentioned this movie so many times since it came out, even though it came out very late in the year, and that is going to be Silver Bullet. Again, not on the contents of the movie itself, because the movie is subpar, genre werewolf movie, but it's no Howling or An American Werewolf in London, but it's a fun kind of old movie. But damn, this transfer blew my mind. And when I tell you I had low expectations for this, I mean low. When I got this in the mail, I was like, oh yeah, Silver Bullet's coming out. Let me pop that in. Now, I was excited for The Dead Zone, which I covered most recently, and because I really like that movie. I think it's a very well done movie. It's a great Christopher Walken and Stephen King adaptation. So it's one of those, again, we got a lot of Stephen King adaptations this year. I think Scream Factory's just like, pump them out, pump them out. People are not talking about Stephen King enough. Anyway, so it kind of blew me away, but the video is where the standout is here, because a lot of these old movies are just 2.0 or 5.1s or reusing tracks. Other than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which has an Atmos like Jaws did, there's no new really audios. That and The Night Before Christmas, there's not a lot of new audio here. It's a lot of reused audio from Blu-rays, but this is the same, so I didn't want to hold that against it. But on the video front, it is incredible. The use of HDR here is bar none the greatest. Now, you'd be thinking, like, okay, there's some other releases that you missed, and you are. And thinking about HDR, I do have one more movie I want to talk about. Let's get past this. But anyway, standout release. There's a red car in the very beginning of this movie that when I saw it, it popped out to me. It was one of those things I'm like, this is what HDR should do. Not this like blinding effect where everything is so bright, it's burning your retinas out of your skull. Because I think sometimes even playing games on like a 4K OLED, you know, on my computer, like everything maxed out. Some of that shit can be very bright. It looks very good, like a Resident Evil 4. Like it just has the best HDR from last year in gaming. But this is no slouch in the department. I highly recommend. This is maybe not my top pick for like things you should buy, but as far as something that I had very low expectations for, and it kind of blew me out of the water, Silver Bullet is definitely on the list. All right, I do have one. And when thinking about this list, I have just thought about this movie while we're recording. And so I could stop this, kind of redo all of this, but I don't want to redo the whole video. So we're just gonna talk about it for a minute. And I'm actually gonna grab it so I can show it to you. Where is it at? Oh my God, you know, you would think that I would have these. There it is. All right, getting too many movies. Let's talk about the others. So I completely forgot about this, as I am not a huge like Criterion fan. They do great stuff, but just not typically for me. The Others is an incredible movie. There's no HDR in this. I have a review on that. Apparently my hands are too wavy. You know, some guy was like, I should try decaf. Motherfucker, you wish I could try decaf. Anyway, I talk with my hands a lot, damn it, and I'm gonna do it forever. So, you know, I'm waving. Anyway, The Others is great. It's a great movie, and the 4K looks great. So I forgot about that movie. It would be an honorable mention because I still think I like my list where it stands, but I did forget about this until just now when we were talking about HDR and no HDRs and stuff like that. So The Others, pick it up. It's a great release. All right, so we've made it. We've made it this far. You've made it this far. I got my Chucky cup of water, you know, and I think that's it. I think we're at the end of this. So I kind of want to talk about what I'm looking forward to in 2024 as far as 4Ks in another video, probably in January, maybe early February, because stuff is getting announced. So maybe I'll round all that stuff up. If that's something you want to see, let me know. But I do kind of hope that we have a great year in physical media, and it looks like we will. I'm hoping Vinegar Syndrome has a lot of stuff to offer. Last year was a light year, but the year before that was so incredible. They had so many big things that I think it's kind of hard to kind of match that, and some other companies kind of did a lot. I think 2023 was a great year for horror physical media. On the actual movie front, I think it's one of the worst years of horror that we've ever had. From just a modern standpoint of what got released, it was pretty terrible. So I will be doing that. So if you're here for the 4Ks, I also will be doing a best and worst horror of 2023, where I talk about my favorite and my least favorite horror movies of the last year. So definitely look forward to that. I'll have some reviews and all of that stuff going into 2024. So we've got a lot of new stuff. I'm working on some side stuff. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you like what we do here. Like the video, because it does help. Leave a comment below. What was your favorite 4K release of the year? We've already talked about this. I'm gonna link all my 4K reviews at the end of this video, so you can check all those out, check all my reviews out, just kind of dabble through the channel. We've come a long way in the last year when I wasn't even covering 4Ks. I think the only 4K I covered was Halloween Ends. So we've come a long way. It's new, and I'm hoping that I get better and better about this as time goes on. I thank you guys for an amazing year. I've grown a lot, I think, as a video maker. You know, I don't like the word content. I think we're having a conversation about movies that I love and weird movies. And again, this is a small, close-knit community, and I appreciate everyone that I get to talk to. You guys all seem super cool. You're not weirdos or just, you know, people just being assholes, so that's been kind of nice. I know we'll lose that the bigger we get, but hopefully the few people that are here that are pretty rad can stay rad, and we can talk about cool movies. So again, thank all of you for the support and watching my videos, and hopefully we have another year of growth, and I'm excited for what the future holds on this channel and what I can do, and hopefully the videos get better and better and better and better as time goes on, and you guys continue to enjoy them. All right, I'm gonna leave you now. Let's have a great 2024, and I hope you guys get to watch some cool horror movies. Hopefully, any of these recommendations help you kind of make a decision, and that's all I've got. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll talk to you guys in my next 4K review.